top poker professional Stephen Chidwick has posted on Twitter what's now known as X, getting into quite detail on his struggles, some mental health, some mental health struggles. This maybe is a surprise to some people that Stephen Chidwick's been so open about this. He was also, I think, a guy like Chidwick was always kind of maybe known as a guy that was very guarded, very. I think maybe people would perceive him as kind of private. There was that kind of always that there were boundaries there, that he maybe wouldn't be the most open, certainly not one of the more talkative guys at the poker table. But from reading all this stuff, it takes a lot of courage for him to come out and be as open and transparent as he is. There's a lot of people who with flexing and bullshit and bragging in the poker world, and people that talk a lot of shit, and there are just a lot of people who are full of it. But he seems like kind of the more genuine, open, transparent guys. And then he happens to be one of the most successful top poker players, well respected. And, he's, number 2 on the all-time money list. This guy's a top player, a beast, really. But, and he's having a killer year, very consistent with cashing. But that doesn't mean everything is all right off the poker table, and we all have our bad days, and we all can still have that struggle, and a lot of it, is up here in our heads, and mental health's a big thing now. More and more people are open about it, and it's good for people to have the conversation. But to get into this post with Stephen Chidwick, because I was kind of on the bandwagon. I jumped on that bandwagon maybe a few years back of Stephen Chidwick, showing no character personality. He's like one of the U-wave kids, like the GTO solver nerds. I jumped on that bandwagon, and I was wrong to kind of do that. We're maybe guilty of judging books by their covers, but I'm going to get into this post, though. So he said, "Hello, X. Many of you will know me as a top poker player who doesn't say very much, and for a long time, I guess I didn't really think I had much of value to say. I've kept a low profile for most of my life. I've built my career with a quiet determination and focus on the things I could control. My preparation, my decisions, my consistency. I don't waste time with social media," I told myself, which can be the out of a lot of these people, people known as private people, right? "I don't waste my time with social media. And while that decision was undoubtedly the right one for me at the time, the reasons were fabricated, or at least incomplete. While I didn't admit so explicitly was my fear of criticism, of vulnerability, and of my inability to control my own obsessive nature. I would almost certainly meet the criteria for," this is where it gets quite serious here, "I would almost certainly meet the criteria for autism spectrum disorder." So right away, that's a very open thing. To be open about something like that takes a lot of courage, and I think you have to commend him for being open like this, saying this. "I would almost certainly meet the criteria for bipolar disorder." So this shit's getting quite real here, because this is like some serious things with mental health, and I've had my own struggles. Family members have struggles. "Though I never stuck around long enough after an episode to receive a formal diagnosis, whether or not I identify with these labels is a topic for another day. I've known the isolation of being forcibly separated from society for my own protection." It can be a big thing. We feel it's self-preservation, I guess. "I'm wondering how I got there. I've experienced being so socially drained from a day of live poker." Well, that can happen. I felt that probably a lot of online poker. "That I've gone to sleep hungry. Not because I was so focused that I lost my appetite, but because those 1 or 2 brief human interactions required to feed myself were just too much. I know how absurd that sounds. I knew it back then too, but no amount of rationality stopped it from being true. Over time, I slowly adapt. I learned how to sublimate," that's a big word, fuck, that anxious energy and turn it into a motivating force. Into an obsessively focused drive to reach my potential as a poker player, to prove my worth to the world through external accomplishments." Don't we all end up, a lot of us, so many of us go down that path. "And then the validation I was seeking started coming. In 2009, I was voted by my peers on a Card Player magazine survey to be the best player in the world. My dreams had become reality." So see, big things like that, Chidwick would come off like that, like I don't give a fuck thing about things like this, but it was a thing that it was a big accomplishment, right, with as far as his ego is concerned, and he gets into that. My ego had a field day, but it wasn't long before I realised there was still a piece missing. Now that I was painted as the best, there was no margin for error. Despite everything I had accomplished, I was no less fragile. Every misstep felt like a threat to the whole narrative. Am I slipping? Am I getting old and complacent and lazy? How much longer can I keep tricking people into thinking I'm so good when I know how big my mistakes can be? And none of that even touched the root of what I was actually seeking underneath it all, to be accepted. So when someone threw out an offhanded criticism, boring, robotic, no personality, and many people were jumping on this bandwagon, and it was like Chidwick was one of the guys, always like the poster boy for like GTO solver nerds and stuff like that. I took it to heart. We gotta think, these people are human beings. They have feelings. Like we so many people, it can be it's like a mob mentality on social media. It's not good. Because somewhere in me, I was scared they were right. Driven by my desire to be the best poker player I could be, I started doing deeper inner work, peeling back the layers of my belief structure and examining what was uncovered. Why did I feel like I had to be why did I feel like I had to be perfect to be worthy? What was I really seeking through my success? Big question. Uncomfortable investigations that slowly but surely started to free me from my preconceived notions of who I was and who I should be. And I saw the benefits. In my performance at the table, yes, but more so in my day-to-day interactions with friends, family, casual acquaintances, and even total strangers. The progress empowered me and urged me onwards. The more I leaned into vulnerability, honesty, and trust in others, the more confident, authentic, and self-assured I felt. And I'm with him on that, and I buy into what he's saying right there. I'm learning to listen not only to my precious logic, but also to the quiet, mysterious, unexplainable voice within. The voice that speaks when I am silent. The voice that now compels me to write this and to expose it for the world to see. And so here I am, the kid inside the robot costume. Just another human being in pursuit of love, of connection, and belonging, aren't we all? Tired of running from my shadow and ready to stop and turn around. I hope. This message is for anyone who feels trapped in the darkness. I've lived through times that felt unbearable, where the idea of peace or connection or even a quiet mind felt impossibly far away. If you're in that place right now, I want you to know it can get better. You're not broken. You're not beyond help. Keep going. I couldn't say that any better myself. You know what I mean? And also he says, I also want to thank all the people who saw something in me that I took a long time to see in myself and guided me down this path. Some will know who they are. And this is a big thing here. Some people, they never know like when they can help you and they make you feel good, even if it's just a little bit. Others may never realize how much of a small gesture meant to someone who was struggling. I'm deeply grateful for all of you. And that's kind of something when I've had down days and little things, just little comments that were people, not even people you're super close with, when people let you know like they have your back. And it's things like that where I try and express in a way where it's like, you don't know how much that can mean to someone when they're not in a good place, their headspace isn't right at all. But you know what? I give him his due for being real open like that, because so many people probably didn't maybe always have nice things to say about Chidwick. Yeah, they have the utmost respect for his game, but as a person, as this guy who wasn't really quiet, maybe thought a bit too intense, the way a lot of times maybe kind of like looking at people, like staring, with how he was with the eye contact. He was maybe that one of those people that people like saw him as a target that people would talk shit on, is like that. And then when people talk about, oh, today, there's no characters, it's the GTO solver nerds, always with their hoods up. Yeah, there's those people there, and maybe it doesn't make the game as enjoyable, as entertaining as it was, from people from the casual poker fans' perspective. That kind of, that thing going back to the early high stakes poker days. But I think there's always a place for people in poker, no matter what. And that's, I think, the beauty of poker, is there is a place for everybody in the game. Doesn't matter where you're at, what skill level, what age, you're going to feel like you fit in poker. And yes, there can be some jerks, there can be some arseholes on your live local scene. But for the most part, most people in the game are pretty sound. And when you're at a table, not always, but some nights it can be just like great dynamic and everyone's having a good time, you have a laugh, and it's not always just about the money. It is that kind of like socialization. There's a big thing there with poker You can get out, you can meet new people, you can meet like-minded people because you all have that thing in common that you love poker. And yeah, that can be a big thing. That can help people. But then if you're hanging all your hopes on poker, that's the big thing. That's the thing that where things go wrong. And maybe that's where he's kind of getting at, where he was very much his results on the poker table ended up being what defined him more than anything else. And it is that thing of like, I understand what he's saying at is like, are we trying to hide something that's ugly inside of us? You know, something we're trying to cling on to something. What's the real reason that we're seeking this? That, you know, with a guy like Chidwick, it's, you know, I'm going to make a few more million. You know what I mean? I mean, if he's got 6 to 8 million in winnings, he's doing okay. So what is it like you're really seeking out of this? I mean, yeah, there can be that thing of fulfillment, of achievement, and winning poker tournaments and games and getting and mastering them. But there is something more deeper there because he's very much bearing his soul because very few people will be so open and honest for them to say, hey, I've got a problem. I could be on the spectrum when it comes to autism. I could be bipolar. Not a lot of people are open like that. Would be too afraid. You know, I have to be honest and hold my hands up, call myself out and be like, would I have the balls to be fully open about my struggles to the world? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I must say, like, I commend him for this. I commend him for speaking out, for being so open. You know, much respect to Stephen Chidwick. My outlook on him has definitely changed now. But I must say, like, giving, like, the couple of times I've heard him in interviews, doesn't come off like a dick. Like, it's like, you know, the interviewers bothering him. Comes off just like a fine guy, normal guy, engaging. You know, nothing wrong there. Yeah, I think that sometimes we maybe made that mistake. You know, you judge a book by its cover. But, you know, Chidwick, you know, much respect to being open like this. And I think a lot of people, I'm sure multiple players, multiple people in the poker community all rallied behind Stephen for being open like this. And yeah, you know, I've got to give the guy credit. And yeah, I mean, I think for someone to be open like that, if you didn't appreciate that and you just was like, whatever, fuck, like, there's summing up with you as a person, as a character. You know, I give him his due because yeah. So many people think, oh, I'm going to be weak. How will people look at me like this? They'll, you know what I mean? Weakness is bad. Vulnerability is, he mentioned that word. That's bad. But yeah, because when there's so many of that bullshit in poker of people and it's all about flexing, you know what I mean? It's just talking shit. It's people waffling on about their bad beat stories, but this is like real life shit. You know what I mean? Getting beyond the poker table. So yeah, I give him a lot of credit for being open like this. Really do give Stephen Chidwick a lot of credit, and he's one of the good guys in the game. I didn't know that much about him, but you know, not many people are gonna open up like this, and yeah, I mean, from somebody I've struggled, and I know people who struggle in my family. So it's something that it means a lot to me for seeing people take that step and being courageous and being open like that. Not many people can do that. So hats off to Stephen Chidwick. He's definitely, he's a poker legend, but he's definitely not seen this, didn't see the side in him. But I give him a lot of credit and respect for being open like this. And to open up on struggles, and we all can be there. We can all have our tough days, and you just got to keep fighting, And I think Plato said it. Be kind because everyone's fighting a tough battle. One of my probably best philosopher, Plato. Great quote. But all hats off to Stephen Chidwick though. But that was just my thoughts. I just want to give my opinion on what I thought there, and just. I know I'd be cool, interesting to hear what other people are thinking in the poker community. What do you think? What's your thoughts? Please leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. What did you think of Chidwick before? Did you take him as a person? You not take him? What's your opinion on him now? But please leave a comment what your thoughts were on the post with Stephen Chidwick open up on his struggles regarding mental health. It'd be interesting to hear your take on that. But that is me for now, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Cheers. Bye.